Welcome to the WP Builds podcast, bringing you the latest news from the WordPress community. Now, welcome your hosts, David Wormsley and Nathan Wrigley.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 106 of the WP Builds podcast. This episode is entitled, With the Right Tools and Guidance, Anyone Can Design a Great Site with Mor Cohen. It was published on Thursday, the 13th of December, 2018. My name's Nathan Wrigley from pictureandword.co.uk, a small web development agency based in the north of England. No David Wormsley today, as it's an interview with Mor Cohen, which I'll tell you more about in a moment. But a few bits of housekeeping just before we start. If you wouldn't mind going over to the wpbuilds.com website, and over there you'll find a whole bunch of links at the top. The most obvious one that I mention each week is the subscribe link, and if you click on that, you can go and sign up to our email newsletter. You can join our thriving Facebook group, and you can be notified about new episodes that we put out on Facebook Messenger, a YouTube channel, a Slack channel, and so on and so forth. Perhaps the easiest way to get the podcast episodes is to use something like a podcast player on your iPad or your iPhone or your Android device, that kind of thing. That's wpbuilds.com/subscribe. If you're after some deals, go to wpbuilds.com/deals, and you can find coupon codes. For example, we've got 25% off Erin Flynn's courses and Beaver Team Pro, 25% off Main WP, Blog Vault, Malcare, 20% off any toolset license, WP Security Audit Log, and widget options. They're all in there as well, and you can find that at wpbuilds.com/deals. We've got a webinar coming up in the new year, and if you go to wpbuilds.com/webinars, you can join that one. It's with Laura Elizabeth from Client Portal. It's entitled How to Use Client Portal, the Client Portal WordPress plugin to have happier clients. I won't dwell too much on that, but if you are interested in having a client portal to help your relationship with your clients so that you can deposit resources and interact with them, then maybe that's a good webinar for you. And we've got something new going on, which is over at wpbuilds.com/contribute. And if you go to the archive page to that, you can find that in the archives menu. You'll notice that we've put two contribute sections up there, two little posts, one with Paul Kress and one with Darren Moriali, and they are both people who've just in our Facebook community have found us in some way, got listening to WP Builds, and then when I suggested that maybe they'd like to come on and do a 10 or 15 minutes very short webinar about something, they both decided they would. Paul Kress talks about Adobe XD, and Darren talks about a little problem he had with Elementor, which he managed to fix. It was all about styling triangles, of all things. So yeah, if you fancy doing that, then go to the contact button on the website and click contribute, and you'll be able to get yourself on, and it'd be lovely. I'm really keen to promote this as a thing, get the community back on the podcast as opposed to the community just listening to the podcast. So yeah, please come on, and we'll post those ad hoc. And the last one is wpbuilds.com/advertise. If you would like to advertise on the WP Builds podcast, perhaps you're a plugin creator or a theme developer and you'd like to reach a bit of a wider audience. We've got various ad formats, banner ads, and pre-roll, post-roll audio ads, and so on. So yes, there we go. Enjoy all that WP Builds has to offer. WP Builds is brought to you today by GoDaddy. Learn how to build your WordPress business with free resources from experienced freelancers, consultants, and agencies. You can find it all at x.co/WP Builds. That's the letter x.co/WP Builds. And the Page Builder Framework. Do you use a page builder to create your website? Page Builder Framework is a mobile, responsive, and lightning-fast WordPress theme that works with Beaver Builder, Elementor, Breezy, and other page builders. With its endless customization options in the WordPress customizer, it's the perfect fit for you or your agency. Go to wp.co/page web-pagebuilderframework.com today. We thank all of our sponsors for their support of the WP Builds podcast. So today we're talking to Mor Cohen. She's from Israel but now living in Washington State in America, and she's got a brand new course out in which she's leveraging GeneratePress, the theme, and Elementor, the page builder. She's not using those tools exclusively, but she's leveraging those to teach you how to design an effective website in a very short space of time. If you're anything like me, design is one of the real problems. I'm more technical than I am design, and so she talks today about what she thinks ought to go into the whole process of designing a website, what makes it cohesive and attractive, what the in inverted commas rules are, and so on. It's really well worth a listen. I really enjoyed doing this one, and it's about something that I can learn a lot about, so I would commend it to you, and I hope that you enjoy it. Hello there, welcome to the interview part of the WP Builds podcast. Today, all the way from, Washington State in the United States of America, we have Mor Cohen. Hello, Mor.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're really, really welcome. Now, I have a confession to make. When I began this phone call a short time ago, we're actually doing this on Skype, Mor told me it's 4 a.m. where she is. So first of all, I'm applauding you for getting up. I don't think anybody has got up at 4 a.m. to do this podcast. So first of all, I feel quite guilty about that. Second of all, congratulations. Well done.
No, it's completely not a problem. I'm used to it. I have clients all over the world. So waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning for a phone call or a Zoom call, it's completely natural and normal.
Do you do that? Do you take client calls?
Yes.
Oh, you're amazing. Wow. That's. I suppose it's different for me because most of my clients are just on my time zone. So, it would be really bizarre if they phone me up at 4 a.m. But if you've set your business up to be global and it's you. So, that's incredible. So the reason I've got Mor on the podcast today is because she's somebody who's kind of making waves, shall we say, appearing quite a lot in the Facebook groups that I'm occupying, but also she's the owner, the originator, the founder of a course which we're going to talk about today. It's all about design and using WordPress to design your website, which is something that I'm not very good at. I can build it, I know the technical stuff, but my absolute Achilles heel is design. So I'll drop the URL to begin with, so that if you're listening to this and sitting anywhere near a computer, you can go check it out. The URL is designclass.io. No spaces, no hyphens, none of that nonsense. So, Mor, first of all, you've got yourself this design course. My first question, I suppose, is why should we listen to what you're saying? What's your background in design, and how have you arrived at doing a course for WordPress?
I started out as a graphic designer or a desktop publisher, as it used to be known, almost 20 years ago. So I've had many, many years designing for print, brochures, logos, and a lot of PowerPoint presentations. I have moved from print to web. So I know everything about having to adapt design to being responsive and to look good on screen, which is really not the same as print.
So 20 years of basically designing things. Were you originally then, you mentioned things like, PowerPoints and things like that. Did you do a lot with paper-based resources and brochures and things like that? And then try to transition those skills over to the web? Yes.
I did do a lot of print work, when we used to have prospectus for everything and a lot of kind of companies used to have all their publications on brochures. And then, you translate that into PowerPoint. That was, the time where everybody, all the startups were out to get money and to solicit venture capitals. So PowerPoint was very, very useful for that.
Now, your website says, and I quote, it says, "Here's the deal. Some websites look polished, cohesive, captivating, flawlessly beautiful, and were evidently built by a professional. Other websites, well, let's just say they look unbranded, underwhelmingly cluttered, unattractive, messy, difficult to navigate, and seem to have been patched together by an inexperienced amateur." Well, that's me. You've hit me right where it hurts, because that's kind of basically me. You know, I am no designer. I have a few people in my clique of friends, local people, who I hand this work off to. But it's always struck me that whenever they deliver their design briefs back to me, I always think, I really wish I could do that. I really wish I had those skills. I don't. I've never really tried to possess those skills. But you're saying that somebody like me, that stuff is within my grasp.
You can be taught, yes. And please don't feel special, because you're not. You are.
I am really not. I am so not special.
No, you are in great company with a lot of amazing developers and marketers who are extremely well, doing really, really well as far as developing a site and selling it and acquiring clients, but they're not good with design. And really, it's not your fault, because you were never really taught how to design well.
Yes.
And you don't have the tools, like you know WordPress and you know plugins and you know how to set everything up. You were taught how to do that, but you were never taught how to design.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, this is me all over. I mean, I kind of stumbled into web design back in the day when it was still tables, even before CSS. And at that time, the web was an ugly place. Even the most beautiful creations were by modern standards really ugly. And
Yes,
then
they were.
CSS came along, and we began to have this notion that maybe at some point in the future, the brochure that we're holding, which looks beautiful and has been designed in Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever, to be pixel perfect and everything drawing the eye in and so on. Maybe this is possible, but it wasn't. CSS never kind of delivered that. But now the tools at our disposal, the sort of CSS frameworks and the page builders and the CMSs and all that, so I feel that we're on the edge of something where print is now achievable. You could do exactly the same stuff in print as you can on the web. And so suddenly I think design has become more important than ever.
Yes, and I think actually it can be even better than print, because the interaction
Yes.
is a lot more personal.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I suppose my problem in a way is that when I get a website project through, if I do try to tackle the design, I have that thing that authors talk about where you stare at the blank page and the stuff just doesn't come. I don't really know what to do to begin with, and so I kind of, make it up, or in my case, in all honesty, I just give it to a designer and, you speak to the client and get out of it what you can and then hand it back to me. What is the process that you would advise somebody like me to do? Maybe you could just elucidate that a little bit.
Sure. I think obviously we need to get some sort of a brief from a client. Either they hand it to us or we need to extract it from them. But we have to understand their client, because at the end of the day, we're not designer for our client, we are designing for their client. So we need to make sure that we are hitting the right targets for their audience. And I think that having that information is a really great first step. But then what do you do with it? I think that, and again, not every project has the budget or the ability to have a designer do the design work. But I think that developers, even those who don't have any design background, can learn how to create really beautifully branded websites with the tools that are available. And I think creating a brand style guide. Um, and working off of that when creating a website, that makes the whole process a lot easier and a lot smoother.
Have you, over the years, come up with a really effective way of getting that information, that data out of the clients? Because I suffer from a lack of vocabulary in this area. I don't really know what the right questions are to elicit that. Is that something that you do cover in your course, or is that something that you could tell us a little bit about? Yeah.
I don't cover that in the course, but basically you need to understand what the client is about, what are their values, what are they trying to do, what are they trying to sell, who they're trying to sell, who are their competitors, what kind of language they speak to their customers, to their clients, who are their clients, what are their demographics, because I think we don't design for people, we design with people. So we need to work with our client to make sure that we are designing something for their own business,
When you've
for their
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, when you've gathered that information, do you reflect that back to the clients? Do you put some kind of documentation together, some sort of brand guidance, and show it back to them and say, does this fit? Or is it just purely for your own purposes as the project goes on?
Obviously, it depends on the scale of the project, but
Okay.
it's mostly for me, so
Yeah.
I can use that as a roadmap
Yeah.
when I'm building the site.
Yeah. Okay. That's an interesting thing. So we've got ourselves into a conversation. We've decided what their purpose is. We've come up with like a brand style, perhaps including logos and things like that. I don't know. Where do we go from there? What's the next thing in your process?
Um, well, that's not an easy process, because we need to include all the elements that we normally would on a website. So it could be fonts, font pairings, any icons, imagery, obviously colors. All the elements should be on that guide. And I would like to have people learn how to pick the right elements that work together, that work cohesively, that will reflect, their client and on the site.
Is there some sort of school of thought around these ideas of, generating color palettes and using the right typography? Do you rely on a particular tool to help you with this, or is it intuition, or what do you use?
There are several tools, and these are all part of the course. I go into them in detail. Most of them are free to use, and they make the whole process so much easier because I think developers spend a lot of time going back and forth between different options. And even halfway through a website, they say, well, no, I really don't like what this is, and go back and change everything and change the font and change colors. So you end up spending a lot of time on this when you should be progressing with the site building and then, moving on to the next project.
Oh, that sounds like me. That's me all over. That's perfect. I was saying to you before we started recording this that I have a friend who he's an artist, and he and I, excuse me, would spend quite a lot of time together, especially when we were younger. And he would be able to look at a piece of art and he would understand it. On some level, he would get it, and he would be intrigued by it and understand, the type of paint and the style of that the painting was in and so on. I'd just stare at it and think, that's a nice painting, or I don't like that one. I've got no depth, no history, no nothing. And he always said to me, the reason you don't really engage with it is because you don't understand it. You don't get it. You've not studied it. If you studied it, there would be more in it for you. And it feels to me like that's what you're doing here. You're encouraging study of the stuff that goes into a design, not just looking at it and going, oh, that's nice.
But the reaction of that nice comes from when elements are laid out the right way. Because when they're not, this is when you don't like things, but you can't really explain why. But when things are presented to you, okay, this is the right way and this is the wrong way, all of a sudden you're starting to understand what is the difference, what went into the good design to make it good.
And I presume, though, that when you talk about a good design in inverted commas, the branding and all of that really matters. You know, if you've got like a young, edgy company who are trying to appeal to a certain demographic, what's good for them will be entirely different to what's good for somebody selling, I don't know, something of a very conservative nature who has a very restricted audience of a completely different demographic.
Right. And that's why I think the brief that we're creating right at the beginning is so important for us to know what direction we should be taking.
Yeah. On the homepage that Mor's got, as I said, if you go to designclass.io, about 2/5 of the way down, there are 8 little rectangles, and they highlight essentially what we're talking about now. You know, the fact that you've got to create this brand style guide, and then we spoke very briefly about color palettes and things. I incidentally am absolutely dreadful at this. I will stare at any color palette and go, "That's nice." Basically anything. But I understand that some things are just horrible together, but I don't have that depth of understanding. And then we moved on to understanding the rules for impactful typography and font pairing and so on. Again, really interesting. I bet there's a whole podcast just on that. But then we move on to master the laws of contrast, visual hierarchy, and white space. What are you on about? What's that?
White space isn't necessarily white. It could be any color, but what it is that breathing room on a website. It's the place where, the viewer can process what you are trying to tell them. Because if things are too cramped or if things are not laid out the right way, people can process the information that you're trying to give them. They don't follow the story that you're trying to tell on a page.
I mean, white space is a bit of a thing at the moment, isn't it? Back in the day, nobody talked about white space, really. Everything was just crammed in as much as possible. That's my memory, at least, anyway. But nowadays, it seems like, themes that we're using they're abundant in white space, and there's margins and padding set on just about every item by default, and I applaud it. I like lots and lots of white space.
Yes, and I think it's really important, especially I think before or while we were on print, there wasn't the issue of people bouncing off a page because they can always go back to it and read the page in the magazine that they were reading or, earmark it and go back to it. But now you only have a certain amount of time, and it's really very short to tell the story. And if you don't let people the opportunity to, comprehend what you're saying because everything is too cluttered and it's driving them crazy, they'll just go away somewhere else.
What is the law of contrast? I can imagine what it is, but you say law of contrast. I'd be interested to know what that is specifically.
Well, you should take my course then. But there are level contrasts that need to be kept and adhered to, especially when you cover accessibility. And also, again, the way we process information. So all these things are extremely important. And I see so many sites that are built with no consideration to that whatsoever. And I think that's a huge miss.
Yeah, okay. The next one, I'm going to miss one of them out because I want to return to it at the end, and that's the very much WordPress specific one. Because then we move to hierarchy, which I presume is the notion of putting things in an order which makes sense and reflects what it is that you're trying to achieve.
Right. And, we talked a little bit about this before, about every page or every website needs to tell a story. And we can't tell the right story if we don't have the right words or the right order. So we need to construct everything in a way that makes sense. And visual hierarchy is exactly that. You lay out the information in a way that, one element relates to the one before it or after it.
It feels to me, maybe now is the time to go into these WordPressy things, because it feels to me as if a lot of this stuff, the laying out and templating of the content, is suddenly within people's grasps. Designers can now do this in a way that just a few years ago was probably out of their comfort zone, because you had to wrangle with the PHP and so on. And now, of course, we've got the advent of page builders such as Elementor and so on. And that's a big part of your course, isn't it? Although at the very top of the page, you mention Elementor, you also were at great pains to say to me that it's not just Elementor, any design layout tool like Beaver Builder or Breezy or whatever. The effect is the same. But you've opted for Elementor in the case of this course, and you've set it up with GeneratePress. Do you want to explain your choice of why use a page builder for a start, and then why have you settled on that theme in particular?
Well, GeneratePress is really the best theme that I found while working. The security of it, the stability, the lightness of it. It's smooth. It's easy to work with. It's easy to implement branding elements into it. And that's part of what I'm trying to show, is that a lot of the stuff that we are preparing for the site can be implemented in the theme and in the builder for us. I also love Elementor. Elementor for me is, I call it the Photoshop of web design, because basically, they're layers of all the elements, and it allows us to lay out pages taking into consideration everything that we talked about, the contrast, the hierarchy, really implementing everything that we are laying out as a foundation. But it's not limited. The course itself isn't limited to Elementor. I frame it in Elementor, but really the fundamentals and the principles are the same regardless of the tools that you're using.
Yeah, the nice thing about using a page builder, though, is that you can lay the hierarchy out, let's use that word, the hierarchy out, and create the white space and do all the contrast work and so on with a mouse. Essentially, you can drag things around, type in a few numbers here and there. You want padding of 20 pixels or whatever it might be, and it just happens in front of your eyes. So if you're driven by the way things look, and you don't have that background in wrangling the code, these page builders are amazing. I'm a massive advocate of page builders, just because they allow me to do things in minutes that used to take me ages of save, refresh the page, go look, right, change that, save, refresh the page, go and look. And it was just so much of my time has been reduced. Why did you, of all of the options, GeneratePress, I get this sort of fantastic theme, Tom Osborne's theme, very lightweight, so it doesn't have all the whiz bang stuff, which frankly to me is not what should be in a theme. I want a theme which is absolutely slim, does the bare minimum. It's got the base site is basically, it's a black and white site, but it's got plenty of white space in it. Everything's laid out how you want it, and there's loads of lovely, easy to figure customizer options. Why did you plump for Elementor at the time that you were fiddling with these tools?
I used to use a different theme that has a builder built in it, and it was again the same feeling of things not being intuitive, too much hard work. Yes, you can achieve really beautiful stuff, but it takes a lot of code. And it wasn't like easy to handle out of the box. And I fell in love with Elementor right from the start, right when they came out. I think it's extremely intuitive. I think that if you know the tool really well, you can take it to really great lengths. There's a lot of hidden features in each and every widget, and when you become really good at it, you can take advantage of that. And I think it flows really, really, really beautifully. And paired with GeneratePress, it's a dream come true.
They're also very affordable options as well, aren't they? You
Exactly.
can pay a very modest annual license fee for GeneratePress, and the same for Elementor, although my understanding is that Elementor has a very generous free option on the wp.org repo. Would you, in your experience, are there things tucked away in the Pro version that you just think are too irresistible for making the designs, or are most of the design features that you require, are they in the free version?
Actually, you can, but what ends up happening to most people is that they use the free version of Elementor, but then pile on the plugins to get all the different features of the Pro version. And you and I both know that's not a good thing, because this is when things start breaking and when there's conflicts, and this is just an opening for bad things to happen. I really do think that the Pro version is an extremely worthwhile investment.
I think what is it? Is it $99 if per site, and then you can increase the amount that you pay if you wish to have 3 sites or unlimited sites and so on. Or have
Yes,
I got that wrong?
Honestly, I'm not completely familiar. I've had the unlimited developer license right from the beginning. I could see right away that this will be what I will be using for my work. So I was very happy to invest in the unlimited version immediately.
And they do have a very ambitious roadmap, and they have a history of
Yes.
churning out all sorts of interesting, innovative things all the time. They've just brought out this thing which feels to me a bit like Spotlight on the Mac, where you type something in a search box and it tells you where it is on the page.
Yes.
Which
Yes.
looks really good. And what's the feature called that they released where you can see the hierarchy? You can drag things up and down. That recently came out as well, and I thought that was quite novel.
I'm really not good with names,
I
but
think it might be
I know how to
stacks
use
or
them.
something like that. I can't remember. Anyway, it's a nifty idea, and I know that my page builder, the one that I use, Beaver Builder, doesn't have that. And I remember looking at it and thinking, "Whoa, that sounds good." So, if somebody was to go to your website, that would be the stack that you would recommend. Get yourself WordPress, get yourself GeneratePress, get yourself Elementor. You're not saying that you can't go with the course, but if you want to get the most out of the course and follow things verbatim, then that would be the stack that you'd recommend.
Yes, yes, but again, you can implement all the design-related information and tools into whichever builder or theme that you're using.
Yeah. So
or even if you're not using a builder.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, obviously, a design course that was entirely tangled up with two particular, a plugin and a theme wouldn't make a lot of sense. So that's good. So we took a bit of a side road there. Let's go back to what it is that we were really here to talk about, which is the design of a website. We've got this hierarchy. The next thing, which I alluded to before we got lost down that little path, is you've got this thing called practical steps to creating cohesive and consistency in design. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yes, I see a lot of sites, and I'm sure you do too, that sometimes start out great and then somewhere, down the page or throughout the various pages, just things get lost. And I think it's because people are using templates and they're mixing and matching templates, and not always you can do that.
That's a good point,
Because each template has different margins and paddings and colors and fonts. And when you start to mix and match, oh, I like this section from this template and that section from that template, this is when things go wrong. And I think that when we recognize it, we can still use the different elements, but then we know how to tweak them so everything looks consistent. And I think as we move from one page to the next on a website, and hopefully it's laid out the right way where we know when we need to move to a next page, then again, the story that we're telling continues the right way, the right tone, the right elements. Everything looks like it belongs to the same brand that we're actually representing.
I suppose in my case, I often hand over my websites when they're finished to the clients. And although I create, the way I often approach it is I'll create, let's say we're working on the idea of a page. I create pages which they can then just sort of duplicate and then start dropping their text in there or whatever. Inevitably, though, it just goes wrong somehow along the way. They start fiddling with the padding or something like that, and you get that call. Why doesn't it look the same as all the other ones? Well, that's because you fiddled with something. So is that the idea? Are we setting up kind of templates which we hand over to the client and say, right, use this and this and this? Otherwise, the cohesion will go, and if the cohesion goes, it starts to look a bit sloppy.
I'm not sure about Beaver, but in Elementor, you can limit the user,
Yes.
ability to change things. So it depends on how ambitious they are and how much you trust their ability, and how much they are aware of the fact that if they mess things too much, you'll end up charging them for putting it to right again.
Yes.
But it really ends and it starts and ends with the fact that there are rules that need to be observed when you're creating a page. And as long as these things are maintained, then the consistency will stay.
Do you have conversations with your clients about this exact thing? Do you? Because I definitely do. I talk about, if we're going to have 16 pages and the intention is that they're all surrounding the same subject. I was just building a site with an automotive company, and it's like car parts and things like that. Let's make them all look the same, and you explain how it can be done. Their eyes glaze over a little bit, but you make the template. I never go down. Well, I haven't usually gone down the approach of locking them out of certain things. I've often experimented with things like putting custom fields in and things, and basically you fill out the custom fields and it drops into the template automatically. I found that to be quite useful. But in the page builder, I just let them have free access. And on the whole, it works okay. I've had a few problems with that, but on the whole, it's been fine. But it's interesting that you take Elementor's ability to lock people out of certain features and use that. That's fascinating.
Well, obviously, I don't do that without their explicit permission, and more often than not, then they actually request it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Can you make it so I can't ruin anything?
Yes.
Can you make it so that I just need to replace the words here and there, but everything else stays the same. So when they ask for it, yes, that's exactly what they get.
Do you give your clients, when you've kind of finished your project, do you sit down and have like a handover briefing session then, where you talk through the color palettes, where you talk through the technique? Do you drop videos in? Do you sit with them on Skype or screen sharing and things, and go through what the design process has been and share it with them so that they understand just how much effort and thought you put into it all?
Yes, absolutely. And hopefully I don't do that at the end, because this needs to happen fairly early in the process. But yes, I think that walking the client through every design decision and explaining why we went a certain direction is extremely important. Most clients have no clue, and that's why they hire us. So we really need to educate them and explain why we picked a certain element. And if their next door neighbor comes in and said, oh, this should have been, I don't know, dark purple, and really dark purple does not go into their brand. We need to give them the, enough education and tell them why that is.
Mm.
But I find that most my clients, I would say 95% of my clients come to me because they've seen my work. I don't do a lot of marketing, so they find me either through GeneratePress or through my site or through the groups, and they know my style and they trust me.
Mm.
And I think that's a really important factor.
Mm. You've kind of hit there seems to be a wave of people at the minute who are releasing courses online. It's become a very popular thing, whether it's design or how to use a particular tool or plugin or how to build funnels or whatever it might be. How have you found the process of actually creating the course? Have you enjoyed it? Has it been difficult, easier than expected?
I am actually surprisingly enjoying it immensely.
Oh, great.
Yes, it is. It's amazing how much I'm enjoying it. I found throughout my time in the groups that when I was helping someone solve a problem, it just gave me such a sense of accomplishment. That, I felt really good about being able to help someone get out of a bind or figure out a solution. So as I'm building the course, as I'm perfecting everything, and trust me, I'm perfecting a lot. It's really great because I can feel how helpful this may be to people and how much of a problem it's going to solve for them.
I was chatting to somebody just the other day who's put together and has launched successfully several courses. And just listening to them talk about all of the stuff that goes in on the back end, and the LMS that you've chosen, and how to schedule the emails, and how to create interest before it all starts. What LMS, what platform have you decided to build this on? Because interestingly, my friend who's a WordPress person, he's decided to step away from WordPress for this exact part of the process.
Yes, and I'm afraid I am on my way out of WordPress for that as well. I'm currently creating it for both WordPress and a hosting environment. And at some point, I'm going to have to decide where I want to put it on. But it looks like it's not going to be on WordPress, not because, I don't think that WordPress can handle it. It can, but for me, I need to make sure and know 100% that the course is always available to people. It's the stability is a really important factor for me.
Yeah. So if somebody's been listening to this podcast and they think that sounds like my thing, are there any other things that you have in the course as benefits? I say that completely in the knowledge that you do, because I've got a list in front of me on your website. But it would be good if you've got no access to the internet at the moment. What else are you going to get apart from, well, I presume video courses?
Yes, and you get a lot of cheat sheets, a lot of processes where you just follow, step one, step two, step three, to get to a certain outcome. You'll get a lot of exclusive templates, layouts, and things like that that can help getting started on sites. There will be a private Facebook group where we'll all congregate and talk about our progress in the course, and I will be available to support and answer questions, and I am so looking forward to that. And you'll have I have quite a elaborate toolbox for all the elements that go into good design, and I'll be sharing that. There'll be worksheets. There's like all kinds of added information other than the video presentations themselves.
Do you know roughly at the moment, if somebody was to subscribe to your course, how many hours, maybe that's the wrong way of describing it, how many videos, how quickly might be a better way of doing it. If we were to start and we were to allocate 1 day a week or 2 or 3 hours a week, how long does it take us to get through all your materials?
This is such a personal thing. I find that even when I take a course, sometimes I can devote more time, sometimes I don't. It's a really personal thing. The material will be available right from the beginning, so people can pace themselves however they see fit.
So you're not going to sort of have a gateway whereby you get this course in week 1, this course in week 2. You're just going to hit them with everything, and they can go through it as they choose. Yeah, I think that's quite a nice idea.
Yes.
I've been through lots of online courses, and sometimes the drip feed works, but also sometimes I just want to I might have more time on my hands, a day here and a day there, and I could well have done with getting on with the next bit.
Right.
I think that's quite nice. So
And
go on.
I'm sorry, no, and there's also, whoever enrolls gets a lifetime access. So people can go back to certain modules and certain topics that they need to be reminded of, or, I'll put updates all the time. So if there's something new that I've learned that I want to share, it will always be there.
Okay. Now to the thorny question, which everybody always wants to know, is what is the price of the course?
The price of the course right now is $247. This is just for the early bird enrollment. At some point, this will close and will only open again right before the course is released the first week of January, but the price will go up then.
Okay, but you're not quite sure yet what that price is going to be.
I'm still working it.
Stick in that one. Well, we'll find out later, shall we say?
Yes.
Thank you. That's really interesting. As I said right at the top, Mor has a wealth of experience designing websites and all sorts of other real life things that you can hold in your hand as well. But her course is at designclass.io, not specifically designed for people using GeneratePress and Elementor, but they are her tools of choice for now, at least anyway. So always more at the end of the podcast, we let anybody have 2 or 3, 5, 10, whatever you like minutes to tell us anything you like. It might be a Twitter handle or a Facebook group that you like or anything. So I'm just going to say, go for it. Tell us whatever it is you want to say.
I enjoy being part of all the groups on Facebook. I think that we are given, an extremely useful tool to use at our disposal. And just think about it. It's a completely free business tool that we are all using for networking. And I think that, participating in the groups and being helpful to others is just extremely, extremely, extremely important, both for us as people who have experience, and both for people who are new and are just starting out. And we all have a support group, a huge support group with people from all over the world, available to us 24/7. I think it's an amazing thing.
It is.
And I enjoy it thoroughly. I have my own little group that people are welcome to join. We talk about design and geek around Illustrator and Photoshop and fonts and colors and things like that. It is called the Design Community by FlixFrame. FlixFrame is my own brand. And everybody's welcome to join us.
That's cool. So FlixFrame, that's FlixFrame, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. Go and check out Mor's Facebook group. Whilst you're there, go to wpbuilds.com/Facebook and you can join our Facebook group as well. There's a cheeky little plug. Did you hear that?
Why not? That's okay. That's completely okay. In fact, I I have actually encouraged my members to go and join your group because I think you bring so much great value.
Oh, you are very welcome. I do this each week and I really thoroughly enjoy it. Much like you have found yourself enjoying making courses, I have found myself enjoying making podcasts, and it's the highlight of my week. I really like it. Mor, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today. I hope that you have, well, you've got about 23 hours left of your day, so I hope you enjoy it. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed listening to Mor Cohen talking about her brand new course. Perhaps you could go and check it out. Click the links on the wpbuilds.com post about it, and you'll be able to find your way there. Today's podcast was sponsored by GoDaddy. GoDaddy Pro is teaming up with web industry experts to bring you practical, real-world advice and guidance. Build your WordPress business with their free guides, articles, and tutorials at x.co/WPBuilds. That's the letter x.co/WPBuilds. Thank you so much for tuning in again. I'm always very humbled by anybody that gets to this point in the podcast. As always, if you want to advertise, it's /advertise, /webinars, and the new one is /contribute if you would like to come on and help the podcast with your expert knowledge about something that you think we ought to know about. It could be anything at all. /contribute. Okay, it remains for me only to fade in the cheesy music and say thank you for listening to us one more time, and we'll see you on Monday for the WP Builds news. Bye-bye.